Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark show for August 23rd, 2023. We're doing another 2023 fantasy football mock draft. Back from our hiatus. It's been about a week, and we had our second baby, so that was pretty exciting. So I'm joined by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to be back on, and congratulations to you, my friend. I'm very happy for you. Glad you and Dina are doing well, and glad everything went well with the delivery of the second Cherapinski baby into the world.
Thanks so much. It was a lot smoother this time than it was last time. Last time we were in the hospital for almost 48 hours before the baby was born because there were some complications. Nothing like serious, but it was just like it was really difficult. So this time it was like we were there 3 hours and then the baby was born. It's kind of like crazy how different it was. But yeah, thanks so much. So we're doing this mock draft. It's PPR, 12 teams. Jacob is drafting first. I'm drafting sixth. And we have about 20 seconds before this begins. So please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that will mean a lot to us if you want to help support the show. Real quick, any reason why you picked number one this time?
Yeah, in one of my fantasy leagues, I have the number one pick, and I've had the number one pick in best ball drafts, but I've not had it in this normal drafting thing. So I wanna give this a shot. And I'm on the clock here. So basically, the decision here for me is down to a handful of players. I don't think there's any consensus number one pick this year. It's just a matter of whether you want to go receiver or running back in PPR. We're doing full point PPR here, so I've narrowed it down to McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson. I'm going to go McCaffrey here because I want to see what happens if I go running back here. I want to see what type of players are on the board for me. Receivers tend to go a little earlier in PPR, so I want to make sure that I'm still able to get some of the elite receivers on the back end. And if I can't, I want to make sure that, hey, if I go triple running back, what's going to happen here? So that's the logic for doing it this time. It's kind of my last great experiment. And, I don't really think you can go wrong with Jefferson or McCaffrey in PPR. They're both going to get a ton of catches. I just think running backs always carry a little more value with me.
Yeah, they have more upside too. And it's always good to experiment in these fantasy mock drafts. So would in real life, if this were a real draft, would you have taken Jefferson instead?
I think for PPR purposes, I probably would go Jefferson. If you're in half PPR or standard, I'd go McCaffrey in this scenario. I just think it's there's too much value in a high volume receiver who always gets open like Jefferson, and Jefferson can make the contested catches too. So I think you should probably go receiver number one if it's full PPR, but anything less than full PPR, I tend to lean running back.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting case. Like you can make arguments for both, and I guess we'll see who's proven right at the end. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely one of them too for PPR. If it's not PPR, there's suddenly some more options. Hopefully these guys don't time out like Sis and Agent Cooper, especially because Agent Cooper is a reference to Dale Cooper from the Twin Peaks, one of the best shows of all time. So Dylan, our friend Dylan goes Tyreek Hill, number 4 overall, and Kid No Name, who drafts with us all the time, is up next. I drafted 6th the last time I did PPR too. And it's because in the one PPR league I'm in, I have the 6th pick, so I wanted to practice here. So there's one guy. Okay. Also, I was going to name him because he wasn't taken yet. Austin Eckler is the guy I took last time. I didn't want to take him again because I got into a scenario where Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were available, and I just couldn't take them because I took Eckler. So I'm going to, let's see. I love this guy so much. I know he doesn't like strike anyone as a great PPR guy, Nick Chubb. Because he usually doesn't catch too many passes, but it's going to be different this year because Kareem Hunt's gone. I think Nick Chubb could have a Josh Jacobs type year receiving wise. And so he's not going to be like a PPR monster or anything. But I think that he's going to have a really good year receiving. And the other option I had, here we go, Cooper Kupp. I was considering him as well. I think there's just too much risk with Cooper Kupp, and which is weird because I'm saying a receiver is riskier than a running back, and I think that's the case though because Kupp is I think he's 31 now, and Matthew Stafford tends to get hurt a lot. So I just think Chubb is the safest player despite being a running back, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Chubb's a guy who would be in the. I think this is a weird year at number one. Like I could go in a lot of different directions. You could convince me that Chubb should be the number one pick in probably not PPR format, but in standard and in half PPR. I think you can make a good case for him because he's going to get that volume. And like you said, he's going to see an uptick in receptions with Kareem Hunt now gone. So I like the pick at 6. I agree with you. I think he's safer than Cooper Kupp. I know, like you said, it sounds a little weird, but Chubb's proven largely durable. A knock on wood as I say that, but I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about him. And look, he's behind a top 2 offensive line too, so that's got to help his cause. Whereas Kupp at any moment could, if Matthew Stafford gets hurt again, be catch passes from Stetson Bennett, who's a gamer and a grinder, but still a 4th-round rookie.
Yeah, and he had a fine preseason debut. Wasn't as sharp. On was it Saturday night. All my days are like kind of like meshed together, if in case you can tell. That's what happens when you're in a building and like you don't see sunlight for a while. So Bennett was worse, which I not that I expected him to be great anyway. I was kind of just always intrigued by him just because he was so great at Georgia. I think that just watching that game, Aiden O'Connell is really good, which makes me a little more confident in Devontae Adams here. If Jimmy Garoppolo is not 100%, and we just had Devontae Adams go off the board. A lot of good receivers: Adams, Wilson, Brown, and so I think that Derrick Henry just went. So, man, all the it seems like all the great receivers are off the board. I don't really have a receiver I like here. I think that the next receiver would be a reach. But meanwhile, I like these running backs still available here. And I think that of these guys, I think I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to be he's going to catch all the passes in Detroit. If this were standard, I think I'd be a little more worried with Gibbs because he's not going to get the touchdown or at least we think that he's not. Maybe he will. We never know. But we know that he's going to catch a ton of passes. They see him as Jamal Charles or Alvin Kamara. So mid-second in standard, I think that'd be too early. But mid-second in PPR, I think is pretty good for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, and I was kind of hoping Jahmyr Gibbs would make it back to my pick at the turn. So I was kind of hoping he might be my fallback there if the receivers weren't available. So this is not shaping up well for me in terms of, there are receivers that I definitely like, but I don't know that they might go off the board these next couple picks as well. So we'll have to see what happens. I might end up testing that 3 running back strategy if not, but I don't want to influence what the people in front of me are doing either.
I consider Josh Jacobs too. Now that it sounds like his holdout's gonna be over. Jonathan Taylor, meanwhile, we don't know. And then Olave just went. So you're on the clock for 2 picks now.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get weird. I don't usually like doing this, but Patrick Mahomes is on the board, so I'm gonna take him because I want to see what happens. I want to see how bad I can make my receiving core. And then the other option here, look, I'm torn between a couple of running backs. So I'm going to take the one who I think is more likely to go in this range in my actual draft because I want to see where the floor on the other guy is. So I'm going to take Ramondre Stevenson. I'm from New England. All the people I draft with are from New England as well. So, look, Ezekiel Elliott's probably going to take some goal line touches, take some touchdowns away, but Ramondre Stevenson, clear-cut 3-down back for that team, going to get a ton of catches. That might be a little early for him in standard, given the potential lack of touchdowns, but in PPR, I think Ramondre Stevenson, early 3rd round, is a decent value considering what was still on the board.
Yeah, and it's not like Ezekiel Elliott is the guy that we saw back in 2016, he's probably going to take the touchdowns, but he's not going to take much else. And who knows, maybe Stevenson will retain touchdowns. I don't think it's guaranteed that that's going to happen. Meanwhile, we have Sis, who took 3 receivers in a row, which is, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of his team looks. I would not recommend taking 3 receivers in a row. unless maybe you playing in a 3-receiver league with no flex, I think you can make the case there. But like you're just not going to have too much upside because the running backs carry the most upside. So DK Metcalf's gone. It's funny that you say like you're in a New England league. Those guys go earlier. That's the same case with me in Philly. Like all the Philly guys go way too early. So I guess that's the case everywhere you go.
Yeah.
All right. So
sorry, you're on the clock. But historically, I never get Patriots players because they always are taken ahead of their draft ADP.
Yep, I never get Philly players either, so it's funny how that works. So I'm kind of prophetic here. I said Keenan Allen's been landing to me in the middle of the 3rd round, but I can't take him because I've been taking Austin Eckler at number 6. So not that I had the choice here because Kid No Name took number 5, but I think that now at number 6, I'm just not going to take Austin Eckler because I always get Keenan Allen and Mike Williams to fall to me. And I'm like, man, I can't do this. So I think that's something you learn, just something you pick up from doing so many mock drafts.
Yeah, and I think where if Nick Chubb's on the board, like you're pretty confident he's going to get the volume. And I know injuries can strike any running back, but he's built differently than Eckler. Eckler is a small dude, and he's had some injury issues in the past. Again, I know you could say the same thing about Chubb, but I don't know. I just feel like Chubb's a bit more durable and just less risky in terms of injury. So I think you can justify it, especially where you say, I'm getting a Charger in round 3 or round 4 in all likelihood. So I like that strategy. Like you said, it's the things that we learned from mock drafts. I'm surprised Devontae Smith lasted as long as he did, though. I will say that. I don't know if that's a PPR thing, but I was considering him with the Ramondre Stevenson pick, but wanted to see how long I could push out this no receiver thing.
Smith was. I think I would have gone Allen. Like if Allen wasn't there, I would have gone Ridley. And Ridley, if he wasn't there, I was going to go Devontae Smith. So he was definitely consideration at 306. I think I've taken him before too. So I'd rather have Keenan Allen PPR. This is standard. I definitely want Devontae Smith. So it's definitely like some PPR consideration.
Yeah, no, I always get confused because I do a lot of half PPR leagues and like the polar op. I've come from the standard tree. That's how I got my start. So PPR is always an adjustment to me. But yeah, no, I like Devontae Smith. I think that's probably the right value for him, though.
Yeah, you're talking to a guy who's been playing fantasy since '95. So like I never heard of PPR until like my 10th year into fantasy or whatever. It's just like a completely new concept. I'm like, wait, receptions count? Why? It was always just like yards, touchdowns. That was it. And back then we used to have to phone in our lineups because there was no online platform. We wouldn't know who won until the Monday, the next day in school when like during lunch. That like someone would bring in a newspaper and calculate all the scores. It's so weird like how different it was.
That's crazy, man. I kind of wish I had been around to see that, but I unfortunately was not yet born in 95.
95. I had Jerry Rice that year. I think I had Jerry Rice, John Elway on my team. I think I had Herman Moore. But I think whatever year it was the year Jerry Rice got hurt. So like my team sounds great, but Jerry Rice was injured, so it wasn't very good. Although Herman Moore played well that year, whatever year it was. All right. Amari Cooper is off the board here. So I'm going to go receiver again. There's some running backs I like. I just wonder if one of them is going to get back to me in round 5. I'm going to take one of these receivers and I'm going to go with the specific one over the other one. Not going to mention the other one until he's taken for a reason. Although for people listening to previous mock drafts, they might know. But I mean, Jerry Jeudy was hurt at the beginning of last year, and then he took off in the second half of the year. He was great at times, and with Sean Payton there, I think that he's just gonna have a great year. So I'm liking Jerry Jeudy in the 4th round.
Yeah, I like Jerry Jeudy in the 4th round as well. I think things are going to get better. The one thing he does that bothers me a lot is he drops passes way more than he should. Yeah. But you can kind of live with that because he largely stays on the field. He seems to have good chemistry with Russell Wilson. There will be like 2 or 3 times, though, when he'll be pounding your head during the season. You're like, why did he not catch that easy touchdown? Mm-hmm. But, I think as a wide receiver, 2 for your team, I think that's a really good value.
There's the other guy, Terry McLaurin. I mentioned that I don't like taking him in the 4th round because I feel like Jahan Dotson falls to me a lot, and I don't want both. Now, if McLaurin's there in the 5th round, this is a different story. So, and not that that's a bad pick. Like, I think McLaurin's a good value. It's just like, it's the same conflict I have with Eckler. Where it's like, you just don't want double the position unless you're sacking that team. So, like, if you get McLaurin and Dotson, you might want to just like spend your last pick on Sam Howell, but you're on the clock now.
Yeah. So, man, I should probably take some receivers, but I don't want to, which is bad. So I probably shouldn't do this strategy in real life. I think I will take a receiver, and I'll take one running back. I'm gonna take, man, I think I have to take Alexander Madison as my running back at this point. I was considering him at 3-1.
Mhm.
I did not think he would make it back to me, but lo and behold, he did. The beauty of PPR. And I'm going to take my first receiver at this point. Going to go with the San Francisco 49er, Brandon Ayuk. I feel like a lot of people are still thinking about Deebo Samuel as their number one receiver, but I think you can make a case that it's actually Brandon Ayuk or their co-number one receivers. So Deebo's going at the end of the 3rd round in this mock. I'm getting Ayuk to start the 5th round when there are, in a PPR mock, a lot of good receivers are off the board at this point. So I'm happy to get him and try him as my number one receiver in this format. And, it might not work out too well. I might end up regretting going Ramondre Stevenson at 3 instead of some of the receivers that came off the board. But I think Ayuk can get the job done.
Yeah, I would have taken him if he got to me. So I love that pick. I liked Alvin Kamara a lot too. Mike Williams, I like too, but I was going to take him because of Allen. But Kamara is someone I was considering at 506, just because he looked great in his that one preseason game, and he looked like the Kamara of old. And 3 games is not a lot. Like, we thought he was going to be 6+ games, and it turns out it's only 3. So suddenly he's looking like pretty appealing in the 5th round. Chris Godwin went as well. The receivers kind of like have dried up here, so I don't think there are any like fantastic options. But then again, there are just so many like half decent running backs that I'm happy with that. I think I'm just going to go receiver again, just to kind of like shore up the position, and I think I'm going to get running backs in the 6th round. So Deontay Johnson is, I'd rather have George Pickens in standard. Deontay Johnson, though, is more interesting in PPR, and Kenny Pickett has looked phenomenal in 2 preseason games. Now, could be misleading. Obviously, we've seen Nathan Peterman look like John Elway in the preseason, and so like these things can be just like a red herring. But I think that it does make sense for Pickett to be better than he was last year. The offensive line's better. He's more experienced now. His Pickens has experience. So I think that offense as a whole is going to be just much better. Deontay Johnson just comes out to be like a decent PPR option, I think, in the 5th round. I like some other guys better. Like I said, like Ayuk, ideally Pickens, I think I'd still take him more in a PPR. But Deontay Johnson, I think, is fine in the 5th round.
Yeah, I like Deontay Johnson there. You mentioned Kenny Pickett being better this year. We saw him get better each week as a rookie. I know he started really rough, and he didn't have the counting stats you look for in fantasy, but you got to kind of come out of the trap sometimes. A lot of times, I talk about this with my coworker at the Sporting News all the time, but he's like, a lot of times people are like, oh, he was bad in fantasy, and so he's not playing well. He's not good. It's like, no, Kenny Pickett was able to win a lot of games at the end of last year. He was clutch. And as a rookie, he threw a lot of interceptions early, but then kind of really cut down on those. So I expect him to take a leap forward. So I think Deontay Johnson in the 5th round is good value, especially Pickens went in the 4th round. I was surprised he went that early. I love George Pickens, the player, and he might end up having a huge year, but I'm just surprised that he wasn't still on the board in the 5th round. And H. Cooper made that pick, and he still got Alvin Kamara, who I actually almost took instead of Brandon Ayuk, but then decided that would be too reckless. Yeah, I definitely like those 2 picks. I'm just kind of surprised they didn't come in the opposite order.
Yeah, I'm surprised Pickens didn't last later as well. But outside of Jonathan Taylor, I like Agent Cooper's team, and that may have been computer, but I'm not sure. So yeah, I like the team overall. Team I don't like is Team 12. Looks like they're a computer because they took Hurts and Lamar Jackson. So at least we don't have to analyze that team.
Yeah, that Najee Harris RB1, not my favorite there. So Do
No,
better,
not at all.
computer.
Yeah, it needs the AI needs to improve here. Let's just say. I like the site overall. Just it's like little weird stuff with this AI. I think. All right, so Justin Herbert just went. So there goes my stacking idea. Um, we had some comments here. Let me get to them real fast. So we had let's see. Jimmy Davis says my first year was 96 and I was 15. Yeah, I think I was so 95 I would have been 13. Like it was eighth, yeah, it makes sense. Like eighth grade is when we first started. Um so it's crazy times. Patrick says I buy a jersey of my fantasy MVP every year. I win. So I have a girly jersey from 2017 and Burrow from last year. That's pretty cool. I've sometimes bought jerseys from like the players that have won me like picks of the month or whatever. Like I bought a girly jersey because they took that knee against the Packers. Like that was a big win, like gambling wise. So yeah, definitely on board with that. So all right, so I have a pick here to make, and am I crazy or is no, he's gone. Okay. Leo Herbert's still available. I'm going to take him. Khalil Herbert's looked great, I think, when he's had the opportunity. And I think he's like the undisputed RB1 in Chicago. I don't expect Deontay Foreman to take snaps from him unless he gets hurt. And Deontay or Rashawn Johnson is just a rookie. So like maybe he gets worked in later. But we saw what Herbert did on that screen pass where he went the distance. I think it was 62 yards or maybe it's 56 yards. The other one's 62 yards. He has big playability. The Chicago offense should be better. I think Herbert's going way too late. There goes Dotson, by the way. I was hoping that he'd make it back to me. So I kind of took a risk there because I don't know. I don't know if Herbert would have made it back to me either. So anyway, you're on the clock.
Yeah, I wanted Dotson real bad at this turn, so I'm in trouble. I need receivers, as you can tell, and I don't really like a lot of the guys on the board. So I have really botched this scenario. I do have one guy lined up, but I'm waiting to find a second guy. This might get ugly. Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to take a tight end, and I'm also going to take a receiver. So this receiver I love, Zay Flowers, BC kid. Real small, excellent hands, terrific route runner. We saw his explosiveness against Washington the other night in the preseason. He had that nice little touchdown run after catch. Granted, he was unguarded at times, but I do think that he's going to have a big rookie year. So I like getting him where I'm picking the 6th, 7th turn was where I was targeting him. Was hoping to get him and Dotson. If I got Ayuk, Flowers, and Dotson, I'd feel okay about going no receiver in the first 4 picks. But Dotson didn't quite make it back to me. So that plan did not work out. I did get Dallas Goedert, though, and I like him in PPR. He gets a lot of catches, and he's just very consistent. When he was healthy last year, he was one of the best. Evan Engram's another tight end you consider at this point. Another guy's going to get a ton of catches. So I wanted a receiver, didn't like the option. So going to be real thin at receiver with this team. That's going to be my big criticism of it, I'm sure.
Receiver is so thin right now. There's like no one left. There are some okay running backs, I think. James Cook was the top guy, so he's gone. Still, though, like there's some okay running backs left. The receiver looks just barren at this point. But there is one receiver I kind of like. I'm kind of a little surprised it's still available, although like that offense is going to suck all year. It's Marquise Brown. We saw what he did last year when Hopkins was suspended for 6 games. And so I think that there's a chance that he does something similar, although to a degree less because Kyler Murray's not going to be on the field. But we did see Clayton Tune look good in the preseason. I know, like it's not ideal to count on Clayton Tune, but the other option is Colt McCoy, and like Colt McCoy is just going to check it down a lot to James Conner. Clayton Tune's at least going to look more downfield. I feel like there are going to be more interceptions because he's a rookie, but still, I think there's going to be more upside with him. And Bart Brown is the number 1 receiver there. Like, so I'm at least intrigued by that. Rachaad White is the other running back I was thinking about. Actually, there are a couple more. But yeah, Rachaad White's going to catch a lot of passes in Tampa. Although, I don't know if Baker Mayfield, like theoretically he could, but Baker Mayfield didn't throw a lot to Christian McCaffrey last year, which is very questionable decision-making there in Carolina. But okay, yeah. So I'm on the clock after like 3 automatic picks here. So Kind of caught me by surprise. So let's see if there are two running backs who intrigue me here. Let me see if they're available because we had some quick picks. Yeah, okay. So Samaje Perine's available. I know this conflicts with my fourth round pick, but we're talking about round 8 and my fourth running back. So like, I'm not too concerned. I've said this so many times. We even had this argument last Monday about the Denver players, and Samaje Perine is. I expect him to have more touches than Javonte Williams this year. Not that he's better than Javonte Williams by any stretch, but Javonte Williams is coming off a torn ACL. Running backs coming off a torn ACL just generally don't do well. Obviously, there are exceptions. Adrian Peterson rushing for 2,000 yards, which is insane. But as a whole, you just want to avoid these guys. Just think about Saquon Barkley in 2021. So I think that Javonte Williams is going too early, and Perine's kind of been forgotten. So I like him here, and you're up again.
Yeah, and we've got comments asking me, quote, what the hell happened here? I don't know, Cassandra. I've failed here, I believe, today. My receiving core is thin, so I gotta bolster that at this point. Elijah Moore at this point, I like his value at the end of the 8th round. Think he's going to be good, and I think I might have to swing for the fences here in the 9th round. Look, I know he's suspended the first 6 games of the season, but when he comes back, Jameson Williams, if he's healthy, he's going to be a deep threat. And I know that doesn't matter as much in PPR, but listen, I need all the upside I can get at my 4th receiver spot. Comfortable with all the other positions that I have, but yeah, I feel a little better about my receiving core now. So that's at least something. But yeah, I think this is definitely taught me. Do not avoid drafting receiver in the first 4 picks. It's just really, this draft at receiver specifically thins out in the rounds 5 through 8 region. So you've got to kind of reach a little bit if you don't get the exact values that you're hoping for.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking at we had a bunch of computers here. I was thinking about quarterback with my next pick, but every team after me has a quarterback. Now, maybe some of these computers take a third quarterback, but like in real life, I'm not going to count on that. And even like Daniel Jones was the guy I was considering. So I'm officially the last person who doesn't have a quarterback. So that's a good pick by Kid No Name, because I was going to count on Daniel Jones coming back to me. So I like, given that the teams have taken multiple quarterbacks, the value is just not there. So I'm just going to pass on the position now. Just not going to reach for it. So Brian Robinson is another good pick. I'm going to go after Jaylen Warren. We talked about him before we started recording, and like how impressive he's been. He's been better than Najee Harris. And I think there's a good chance he takes some of Najee Harris's workload this year, maybe even half. Or it wouldn't surprise me at all if he passed Najee Harris and became the primary runner there in Pittsburgh, a team that's going to have a better offensive line. So I definitely want to target Jaylen Warren in the middle rounds.
Yeah, I like the Jaylen Warren pick a lot. And again, this is probably a case when you look at your team compared to my team. You went balanced approach. I went wait on receiver. I like the running backs you're getting now better compared to the value of running backs early. That I like, the receiver value is not equivalent to the running back value at this point. Like, Jameson Williams is not a pick I'd like to make compared to like a Jaylen Warren as my RB4. So I think definitely going balance is probably the way to go here. And, you know, in your case, waiting on both tight end and quarterback was the right move. And I like to test this every year because we always talk like, oh, wait on a quarterback, wait on tight end. And I sometimes don't follow that. But look, this time I did not follow it, and I'm feeling it with the depth of my team being affected.
Yeah, I think that we learned that receiver is so much thinner than running back, which is like, running back is thin too. Don't get me wrong, but receiver seems so much thinner. So I think I'm gonna move up my receivers in my cheat sheet just based on what we saw tonight. Not sure what happened. It's kind of weird because it felt like running back and receiver were equally thin, but I don't know. Maybe it's just one mock. Maybe it's just a weird mock or something. But yeah. So we have the computer taking 2 tight ends now. But I was right. The computer didn't take a quarterback, so looks like Daniel Jones would have been my pick if Kid No Name didn't go with him. Never mind. The computer took a third quarterback. So I think I'd normally just keep waiting on quarterback, but I think the computer is going to take more quarterbacks, and also I feel like people are going to take a quarterback as well. So, and the receiver, I want more receivers, and the receivers I like, I feel like I could get them later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with I'm going to go Anthony Richardson, I guess. He has the most upside. He could bust. He could be terrible for sure, but I think with his rushing ability, like there's at least like a higher floor. So I don't mind that. Like ideally, you'd get Richardson in like the 12th or 13th round, but this is a weird mock draft because we've had one team take 3 quarterbacks and another team take 2 quarterbacks. So yeah, just like it's not going to happen for real. But like I said, I would normally just keep waiting on quarterback, but the receivers I like are like deep sleepers that no one's going to touch. So I'm fine just going this route.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good move at this point for you. And I like a quarterback with a rushing floor if you're going to take a sleeper with upside. I remember one year that my father was the last guy to take a quarterback, and he took Lamar Jackson, and Jackson that was his MVP season, so it ended up being a good pick. Yeah, that kind of is what happens, and maybe Richardson doesn't pan out, but you just play the waiver wire at that point. I'm going to start balancing my roster better now because I only have 3 running backs. So I'm going to try to take one here. I think I'm going to go with Tank Bigsby. I know Travis Etienne is the lead back in Jacksonville, but I think Bigsby, after his impressive preseason, going to take some of the between the tackles work. His only question is, will he have the receiving upside in PPR to be valuable? That will be less of a question with my receiver pick here. Jaden Reed is going to be the Packers' starting slot receiver in all likelihood, and he's looked pretty good during this preseason. So I've been happy with what I've seen out of him. I think targeting him in the early double-digit rounds to late double-digit rounds, depending on the size of your draft, is a good move. And I think he has more value in PPR too. So I think that he's going to be a solid pickup for people in PPR, especially compared to the relative value of, say, Christian Watson, who's going to be a big play threat, but may not catch as many passes.
I like the upside guys that you've gone with, starting in round 9, Jameson Williams, who could have a big year after week 6. And then you have Bigsby and Reed. You have 2 rookies. So definitely a fan of that strategy. Once you get to the second half of the draft, you just want to kind of like swing for the fences. So I'm up again, and I talked about how some of these receivers are not going to be taken. I'm going to take Tank Dell. I think he was not injured. He was warming up for the second preseason game, and the Texans just didn't play him, which is like one of 2 things happened. Like, 1, he got hurt in pregame warmups, which I didn't hear anything about, or 2, the Texans deemed him so good that they didn't want to play him. And based on what he did in the first preseason game, it might be the latter. He might be their best receiver by a mile, which is like not saying much because he's competing with Nico Collins and Robert Woods, but he looks so good in that game, and so they just might want to put him in bubble wrap and not play him for the rest of the preseason. The Texans actually did this last year with Dameon Pierce. They didn't play him in the preseason once he had that one game. So I think Tank Dell is someone with a ton of upside, and I'm going to target him a lot in my drafts.
Yeah, I actually was between him and Jaden Reed with the 11th round pick there, but I wanted to see where Dell would end up. I figured you might end up taking him, but those are kind of the guys that I'm going to be looking at, like the 11th to 13th round range if I need receiver depth, especially in PPR, because those guys can be reception machines. And look, we don't think the Texans are going to be like very good. They might end up going over their win total or something, but they're going to have to throw a lot. So that's going to benefit Dell. You are somehow on the clock again. Wow, that was fast.
That was very fast. So here's another receiver who's not going to be taken. I just added him to my sleepers list. Kendrick Bourne. I think he's going to be the number 1 receiver in New England this year. He's been awesome in training camp. He looked really good in that second preseason game against the Packers. Just like he won every route. He was an excellent blocker. He's been great in the practices. Just heard nothing but good about him. He was in the doghouse last year because he and Matt Patricia were at odds, but Patricia's gone. Now the Patriots have a real offensive coordinator, and also Jacoby Myers is gone. So someone's going to have to fill that void. I think it's going to be Kendrick Bourne. I'm a big fan of him. I'll definitely make sure you try to get him in the late rounds. this is my final non-tight end, non-kicker, non-defense pick. So like ideally, this would be like my 13th round pick in normal 16 team leagues, or 16 round leagues. But yeah, anyway, so you're up with 2 picks now.
Yeah, I'm really, really bad at having 2 players ready to be drafted at any given time. Good God. I think I have my 2 guys. I just got to see if this guy's available first. Yeah, so I'm going to go with 2 more rookies because this is a rookie-heavy team, apparently, after the 10th round. They're all rookies. Rashee Rice, he looked good in his preseason game last week. I think he only had 1 target or 2 targets from Patrick Mahomes and 1 catch, but Patrick Mahomes, if you're playing with him, he's going to elevate your game. And I think Rice is going to get better as the season goes along. So I like grabbing him at this point just as a wild card. And if things don't pan out, I'll release him to the waiver wire. And then, look, we know Jonathan Taylor's not happy with the Colts. If he doesn't play, they have nobody. So Evan Hull is a guy who might end up getting the carries there. I truly do not know if they're going to give it to Hull, Jake Funk, Kenyon Drake. They're going to sign Kareem Hunt. Maybe they'll trade Jonathan Taylor to the Rams and get Cam Akers back. That was a theory floated to me by one of my coworkers that I don't hate. Not the coworker, the theory. I still love. Okay, that sounds bad. That sounds like I hate my coworker. No, I love my coworker and I think his theory's good. But yeah, anyway, I think that Evan Hull is a decent value pick at this point for my my roster. So I'm a little thin at the running back and receiver, but if one of Bigsby or Hull pans out, I'm going to have a lot of depth there.
That's a good thought about Evan Hull. I haven't really thought about him. I'm kind of worried about Deion Jackson taking the snaps or taking the touches too. So I've drafted Tyler Higbee in every draft recently. Maybe this is another reason not to go Cooper Kupp, but he's a PPR monster, and like the Rams don't really have anyone to throw to besides Kupp. And Higbee, and like Higbee's just going to get a ton of targets every week. So I like him here. Yeah. So Rashee Rice, I like that pick too. I added him to my sleepers list. So definitely a fan of that. And Patrick, you said he got 1 target from Patrick Mahomes. I think like Patrick Mahomes threw to 10 different players on 15 attempts. So like it was like almost everyone had 1 target from Patrick Mahomes. So I think that was like kind of funny. Like I was tracking his targets. So it was like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. It was like it's kind of crazy how he just spread the ball out like around. I'm gonna go defense here. Let's see if Washington's available. So they're gonna play Arizona week 1. And that might be Clayton Tune. So here we go. Let's go Redskins defense. That's my thought process with that.
Yeah, no, that would have been my pick if they were on the board. So I'm not surprised they went off the board, given that we're drafting with a sharp room of people, except for the ones who've been replaced by computers, which I think people are saying the site crashed for some of them. So that explains why there have been so many auto picks on the back end of the draft.
That would make sense. Yeah, we had a bunch of computers here. Kid No Name saying is Elliott not in the database, Dalvin Cook not in the database, which is weird because they were in the database last week. Maybe they're doing some maintenance here and they're adding their teams or something. Like maybe we just caught them at a bad time. That could be it.
We definitely caught them at some time because I've never seen this guy on the board ever. And this is not deleted, who is still on the board. But I'm not taking deleted. I'm taking my favorite kicker, Green Bay Packers offensive lineman Rasheed Walker. I have no idea how he is on the board here. I have no idea how an offensive lineman could really accrue fantasy points, but I somehow stumbled upon him. So he is my pick for kicker.
That's amazing. There are some interesting players. Let's go. My kicker is oops, I clicked that by accident. My kicker is gonna be Jacoby McLean. There we go. Why are these guys available? And like Dalvin Cook and Zeke Elliott or not? I don't understand.
They must have. I bet they have some data feed that goes into this that has just a few rogue names and a few names that are not on there that's being maintained. But that is man, that is great. We've got an offensive lineman and a linebacker in our draft. This is the kind of fantasy football I want to see more of.
I know, right? They should make they should make the offensive and defensive lineman kick instead. Like that'd be more interesting. So, um, yeah, that'd be crazy. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to like branch out to IDP. I don't know, but like you'd think the good players would be here, not like I wonder if like TJ Watt's available. Like TJ Watt's not here. Like, but Luke Wattenberg is. That doesn't make sense. Oh, anyway, and Jacoby McClain is. So, all right. Do you want to talk about your team? Then I'll talk about mine, and then we'll talk about the non-computer teams, which is I don't think there are that many.
Yeah, I wanna first address Tyjae Spears did not get drafted, which surprised me.
Oh, okay.
I might have taken him over Evan Hull. But this is just me going through the database of names at this point. Okay, so this strategy for me was a colossal failure. This is probably my least favorite team I've drafted on here so far. Look, obviously, running back is in very good shape with McCaffrey and Stevenson being PPR monsters, and Alexander Madison is the lead back in Minnesota. I have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. That's never a bad thing. But the problem is, you look at my receiving core and you're saying, all right, Brandon Ayuk, Zay Flowers, Elijah Moore, they're all pretty good. But for PPR purposes, I want at least one elite, true monster receiver. And maybe Ayuk can be that. Maybe he is able to kind of be what Deebo Samuel was when Deebo had his massive year. And I think that was 2021. Maybe he can do that, but I don't know that he can. And I like some of the sleepers I got. Jameson Williams, Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice. I think one of them will pan out. Tank Bigsby, I think, will be good. Evan Hall's a real wild card, but I think that my draft is a cautionary tale that if you wait on a receiver, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And if you look at my lineup, if I were to have passed on Patrick Mahomes and instead taken DK Metcalf, might have been the guy I would gone with because I like DK Metcalf a lot. If I had DK Metcalf and instead of taking maybe Jaden Reed, I ended up with a quarterback there like Geno Smith. I think you're looking at this team and I'm feeling a lot better about it. But yeah, I don't. This isn't the worst team ever, but it's definitely not one I would recommend following.
Yeah, I mean your running backs look great for sure. It's the receiving depth and like the receivers is so thin that just kind of echo what we said earlier. So my running back core I love Nick Chubb, Jahmyr Gibbs, then with Khalil Herbert as good depth, Samaje Perine as well. Jalen Warren has upside, so I'm very happy with that. Receivers Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy, Deontay Johnson, I think are very good in PPR. Then Marquise Brown, not ideal in the 7th round, but I think he's okay. He's still a receiver one. And then a Tank Dell and Kendrick Bourne, also potential receiver ones. Bourne, like I said, he's looked great, and the Patriots don't have much at that position. Same with Tank Dell, like he's not competing with much. So these two guys could be receiver ones that have gotten 11th, 12th round, which is I'm pretty excited about. Well, I would be if this is real. Anthony Richardson. I talked about how this is not realistic because we had 2 quarterbacks here. We had 3 quarterbacks somewhere else, or we had 2 here. That's not going to happen in real life. I would have gotten Daniel Jones or Aaron Rodgers. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. Tyler Higbee, my go-to tight end in the 13th round. So I like the team overall. I don't know if I would change much, but I would echo again that there are some players that are conflicts with others, like Austin Eckler. I love Austin Eckler PPR. The problem is right here, Keenan Allen falls to you in the middle of the 3rd round. If you take Eckler, like you almost have to pass on Keenan Allen unless you take Keenan Allen and also plan on drafting Justin Herbert to have like a full stack, which you normally can't do with receiver running back, but Eckler catches so many passes. I don't really like that because, if the Chargers have a bad game, like say like their left tackle, or even like if 2 offensive linemen go down and suddenly their offense isn't very good, like your team's going to really struggle. You have a ton of upside with the stack, but it's just something I wouldn't do in normal. Like in obviously DFS you want to do it, but normally I would not. Terry McLaurin is another guy. I mentioned him. You have Jahan Dotson falling to you. He fell to me in the middle of the 6th. It was either Herbert or Dotson. I wonder if Herbert would have came back to me in the middle of the 7th if I took Dotson. I thought Dotson might, but apparently not, because you said you were going to take him. Dylan, who's pretty sharp, took him. So, so I definitely want to get one of those Redskin receivers because I think that offense can be better than people think, or at least maybe they thought before that Monday night game. So anyway, I feel like we should skip some teams like Sis, I think was a computer. Agent Cooper, we talked about his team briefly. How Taylor, I wasn't a fan of Taylor, but everything else looks pretty good. He took Rogers late, Laporta as his tight end. I don't know if I'd go double tight ends. Maybe he was definitely a computer at this point. Although I don't know, like Ben DiNucci, the computer wouldn't do
He
that.
was
So
not a computer. I think this was Patrick. I think he commented. Yeah, he said he got Ben Anthony
okay,
DiNucci in the 13th round as proud sleeper. So that was not. So
okay,
this was a
there you
real
go.
person team.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So yeah, like I said, I like this team a lot. I like the running back depth, receivers. I think the one thing I would do here instead, outside of Taylor, if you want to take Taylor, fine. I would not take Dobbins here. I would go another receiver because you already have three running backs, and like loading up on a fourth before your third receiver, or even your fourth receiver, I think is a mistake because running backs tend to, well, first of all, running backs tend to bust too much, and also receivers are so thin that I think this should be a receiver, this should be a receiver, and then you can go running back again, and then um, and then one of these picks could be running back here. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I like this team overall though. I think Patrick did a good job.
Yeah, I definitely like this team. I think the one question I have about the running back depth is, you have Kamara who's suspended 3 games, which doesn't matter in a vacuum, but with Taylor also potentially holding out, we just don't know his situation. Having both of them on the team scares me a little bit because then you're looking at, running back core of ETN, Dobbins, and Gainwell is certainly not bad, but you're just a little thin in case one of them gets banged up and both Taylor and Kamara are sidelined. But I love Jamar Chase. I like George Pickens enough too. So I might have grabbed another receiver instead of going 2 QB and 2 tight end, but I think the Ben DiNucci pick was just for fun at that point. So no real complaints about this team overall, though. Just the one thing to be mindful of with Kamara and Taylor is maybe just have a little extra depth at running back.
Yeah, that's a good point. Dylan, who's he was on with us twice last week, so he went Tyreek Hill early, then Metcalf, Mike Williams, Dotson. You have to love this receiving core. His running backs, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, is like pretty good 1-2 punch there. Didn't take a running back again until round 9, but Ryan Robinson Jr. is someone that I was like, man, he really fell here. I was probably going to take him around 9 if he was available, and I was considering him here. So I know this is PPR, but he saw, I think, 4 targets in 1/2, or maybe it was 3 targets. It was either 3 or 4 last night in 1/2 of action. So looks like they're going to be throwing to the running backs a lot, not just Antonio Gibson. So I like Brian Robinson Jr. for sure. Quarterbacks Tua in the 8th round is fine. Evan Ingram 7th round. I think this should be a running back. That's the only change I would make here, and then go tight end round 12 or 13, just because. Round 7, you could still get good running backs here. Like you could have gotten James Cook, or I don't like Swift. He could have gotten Rashad White, who's theoretically good in PPR. Isaiah Pacheco, who's an RB1. So that I think that instead of Ingram, should have gone running back here, and then instead of Algier or Valdez Scantling, like this could have been Tyler Higbee. So that I think that would have been better. But otherwise, I think Dylan did a good job.
Yeah, I like this team a lot. It has a lot of explosive playmakers, especially at receiver. You look at Tyreek Hill, you look at DK Metcalf, you look at Jahan Dotson. Mike Williams is usually among the league leaders in yards per catch. So I think between them and Evan Engram, you look at that receiving core and you're like, man, this team has a ton of upside. I agree with you. I think the running back, probably should have gone one earlier than that. Maybe go James Cook instead of Evan Engram. I think that might have been the play there because I think you'd have enough explosive ability to carry you. And then you'd have 3 rock solid running backs and getting a great sleeper and Brian Robinson at that point. Well, not even a sleeper. That's a value pick at that point. But yeah, this is one of the stronger teams in here. And I very much assumed this would make the playoffs if this were a real league.
Yeah, I agree. Kid No Name, I like the team as well. Eckler. Imagine, like Eckler is still great in the first round. I just don't like the conflict there. But, if you take him, that's definitely good. Joe Mixon is an RB2. I expect him to rebound this year. James Conner, James Cook are, they project as good PPR running backs. Receiving core, you have Jalen Waddle, McLaurin, like Chris Godwin. Still good in PPR, even though Baker Mayfield's there and Jordan Addison is upside. I think I would have taken him a little bit later, but, the upside is still there. Quarterback Daniel Jones, I talked about him, how I wanted him in the 9th round. He stole him 1 pick earlier, so I thought that was good. Tight end, Cole Kmet, he's a fine option in the 13th round. Like Kmet, Higbee, Dalton Schultz, Dawson, not Dawson Knox so much, but like these guys, like Chiggy Okonkwo wasn't drafted. Like these guys are like they're proof that you could just wait on tight end because they're not that much worse than the guys who were taken in rounds 6 through 8 or 9. So I like the strategy too. I like Kid No Name's team a lot. I think this is a solid team.
Yeah, I do too. I think my one qualm with it is or if I was going to have a qualm with it, I'd say I'm not a big Joe Mixon or James Conner guy, but Conner will catch passes out of the backfield in PPR. And the fact that he got James Cook as the RB4 makes me completely comfortable that if Mixon falls off entirely or Cincinnati looks to replace him, he's still 3 deep at running back, even if I'm not as high on Conner. So I think this is just a rock solid team. And again, you look at the construction of it. First 8 rounds, 4 receivers, 4 running backs. I think that might be the way to go this year, unless you get like a crazy good value at quarterback or tight end. Like me going Patrick Mahomes in the second very end of the 2nd round, not a great value. I should have waited, and if you somehow followed me to me in the 4th, maybe gone there. So I like the 4-4 approach.
Yeah, I like that too. Always be mindful of values. If you're 5-3, 3-5, sure. And then, or if you get the quarterback tight end, like you're talking about, like don't pass on those guys. But I think that 4-4 approach is pretty good. I like 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds specifically. You don't have to, but at least one running back in the first 3 rounds, just because those guys have higher upside. And then you can just load up on a receiver after that. Steel City looks. I don't think this is a computer, although maybe at the end he was. But so he started Cooper Kupp, which I thought about. I just worried about his like either him or Stafford staying on the field. You have like Ridley Cooper is a good receiving core. Derrick Henry, Cam Akers. I like the starts of this running back group, but then he went DeAndre Swift, which I would just avoid these equal running backs until the round 10 or later area. Took a lot of shots at running backs here. Gibson, it's okay, I guess. McKinnon, again, fine. Devon Achane, he got hurt. Singletary, wouldn't touch him. Dak Prescott, quarterback. I think that's too early for Prescott. You could just wait until round 10 to get someone similar. There's no need to do that. So I think I would have gone a fourth receiver or 4th running back here. I can understand Darren Waller because he looks so good in the preseason, but it kind of reminds me of a Kyle Pitts last year. Remember Kyle Pitts caught that deep pass and then everyone went crazy and his like ADP rose like 3 rounds. Doesn't mean like Darren Waller's going to do that in the regular season because Saquon Barkley didn't play. Like Barkley's going to take a lot of targets too. So, but I don't hate Waller there. I just like given the lack of depth at receiver and running back, I would go tight end later, but. Overall, like not a big fan of this team, but I don't hate it. The one thing I just noticed, he has Kupp and Akers. That's something to avoid too.
Yeah, I think this is too early for a tight end, like you said. And I like Darren Waller a lot. If he'd gotten to me in the 7th round, I might have considered him. But you just got to be mindful of the other depth that you have there. And I know I'm one to talk. I took Dallas Goedert over a 3rd receiver, which was probably the wrong move. But yeah, just beyond that, like the running back room just doesn't excite me. Like Derrick Henry's running behind probably the worst offensive line of his career. It might not mean much, but this could be a bad year for Tennessee. Cam Akers, he has a contentious relationship with the Rams. Maybe it's fixed, maybe it's not. DeAndre Swift, he gets hurt a lot, like constantly. So, you're really relying on a lot of guys like Jerick McKinnon to probably step into a bigger role. And his health is no sure thing either with how banged up he's been during his career. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of this one. I think if you go Kupp first, you have to take a different approach with some of these picks.
Yeah, definitely. Sam is a computer. He drafted 2 quarterbacks. So let's go to Buck Fiden. I'm not sure if this is a computer because let's say he didn't draft 2 quarterbacks. So I think it might be legit. So this looks like a 0 running back strategy. He just took he took 4 receivers, a quarterback, and a tight end before he took his first running back, which is something I would not do. It's good to experiment though for sure. So let's look at his running backs. He took Javonte Williams, who's coming off torn ACL, then Jamal Williams, who's going to be a backup come week 4. Deontay Foreman is a backup. Michael Carter is a backup. So like as running backs, like this 0 running back strategy like failed, I think miserably. But his receivers are great, like Diggs, Wilson, Watson, Lockett looks pretty good. Josh Allen, Mark Andrews, like the rest of his team is really good. It's just like you have to wonder where his running back depth is going to come from.
I think what happened here was whoever started drafting, I think eventually got kicked out. They were testing the zero RB strategy, but I wonder if in round 8 they got kicked out because I would have assumed starting in the 7th round they would have gone 3 or 4 straight running backs instead if that was the plan. So that is my guess as to what happened here. But I agree. I think you can't go true zero running back. You have to go at least one in the first 3 picks. That was my rule of thumb last year. I think you laid that out as well tonight. So I think that's definitely the way to approach. And I like the mid-round running back value this year a lot. But, you don't want to be marching out a team in week 1 that's like, oh, Javonte Williams and Jamal Williams are going to carry my team for 3 weeks, and then I'll figure it out from there. Maybe it works out, but the odds are you're not going to have the right backup on your roster, or someone else is going to get them on the waiver wire.
Yeah. So we had 2 more teams because team 12 is clearly a computer. Ty, he took 3 receivers after Bijan Robinson. He went AJ Brown, Debo, DJ Moore. Not a fan of those guys really where they were drafted. Like Debo, you mentioned Debo's big season. That was in 2021. He had 8 rushing touchdowns that year. That's not going to happen again with McCaffrey there. So he's going way too early. DJ Moore is in a run first offense now with Justin Fields. So he's not going to produce as consistently as he's had in the past. So I don't like these receivers. And then he didn't go receiver after that. So maybe this is a computer. Even though they went 1 quarterback in the first 10 rounds, it still might be a computer. So Bijan, Damian Pierce, Rashad White, Pacheco. That's actually a good running back core. And Freiermuth, I like Justin Herbert. I like Justin Herbert, not in the 6th round though. So like except for the 0 receiving depth for some reason, his team actually looks like not bad. I just don't know why you would draft no receivers late in the draft.
Yeah, I think this team definitely was booted as well. I think it was weird. It was like all the picks after you got booted from this at some point. I don't know when it all happened, if it all happened at the same time. But I like Brown, Samuel, and Moore, I think, a little more than you. I don't like Deebo Samuel's value compared to Brandon Ayuk's. That's my issue with it. But I think DJ Moore is going to have a good year just because I don't know that he's played with a quarterback as talented as Justin Fields at this point. I can't remember. I think DJ Moore had like 1 year with Cam Newton, but it was when Cam Newton was like really hurt and like out most of the year. So I think Justin Fields might unlock him in something, but you're right that he won't have the opportunities in terms of targets, which is important for PPR. So I'm interested to see where he ends up going in my draft, DJ Moore. But I get why this is probably too early for him in PPR.
Yeah. The last team we're talking about is Team Miller. I like to see him a lot. I started Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, which is a great start. His receivers are DeAndre Hopkins, Drake London, 2 receivers I love. Christian Kirk, I was considering him I was going to consider him in the 6th round, but yeah, he was off the board. And then Gabe Davis, who I've been out on Gabe Davis, but he looked like pretty good in that Saturday game against the Steelers. So maybe last year he was just a down year for him, and he might bounce back. So kind of have some faith in him. I do think round 7 is too early for him, but maybe I'm just too down on him, and he could be good. He could prove me wrong. The one pick I don't like, or I should say there are 2 picks I don't like. One is Rashad Penny in the 9th round. I actually kind of think he's not going to make the roster. I think Trey Sermon is going to be the 3rd running back there. And I think Penny could be like out. So if you take Penny, just go later. There's no reason to take Penny in the 9th round. Also, George Kittle in the 5th. Talked about the tight ends. I wouldn't take them in the mid rounds. And Kittle's production could be down this year because their offensive line is going to be worse without Mike McGlinchey. Now, if McGlinchey's replacement is good, then that won't affect Kittle. But if the 49ers have problems blocking, Kittle is going to have to block himself like he did when Trent Williams is out. Just look at those games last year when Trent Williams is out. Like Kittle did almost nothing. So that could be a repeat. So those 2 picks I don't like. Everything else I'm a fan of. Like I said before, Gabe Davis a little too early, but I think I like this team overall.
Yep, I do too. And I want to note, I think Jimmy is the one who drafted this team. He's saying in the comments that he was booted in the 11th round. So anything from Darnell Mooney on was computer. But I think the first 10 rounds, I agree with you. It's pretty strong overall. The one thing I would say is better 3rd running back probably. Like you said, Rashad Penny might not make the Eagles, which is shocking to me. I expected more from him. I get based off the way the guys have looked in the preseason, that's probably the way it should go. But, this is the beauty of fantasy football. I took him in the 6th round of a mock we did like a month ago, And
Yeah.
now he might not make the roster, and a lot of my best ball teams are going to be sad because of that. But yeah, I think the Eagles running back situation kind of scares me a little bit. Like, I don't mind taking one in the 10th round, but if you're taking a guy like DeAndre Swift or even Kenneth Gainwell, and you're like, all right, this is going to be a guy I'm going to plug in at flex, or Rashad Penny for that matter, and you're like, this guy's going to be a good flex. This is going to be great. He's a good value in the 7th to 9th round. I get a little scared of that just because I'm like, any one of them could get hurt at any time. And if they ride the hot hand, you just have like a 1 in 3 chance of having that. And if Trey Sermon pans out, turns into a 1 in 4 chance. So yeah, definitely would avoid the Eagles running backs unless they're in the 10th round there. But aside from that, I really like this team. Barkley and Tony Pollard could be a really elite running back tandem.
Yeah, you're totally right about the Eagles running backs. Like, I have no interest in them before round 10. I listed Gainwell as my top sleeper a week ago because he didn't play in the preseason, and his ADP was 15-10, I think, round 15, pick 10. Now, if you're in round 15 and Gainwell's available, like, definitely snatch him up. But now he went in the 8th round. Like, I have no interest in Gainwell in the 8th round. I have no interest in Swift in the 7th. I have certainly no interest in Penny in the 9th. Just avoid these guys. Like, they're all going to split touches. Sermon's going to be like worked in too. Like, they really like Trey Sermon. So it's going to be 3-man rotation. I think Penny's out right now. Maybe things change. But yeah, these guys are all going to have their roles. Like, each week is going to be different. Like, 1 week Gainwell is going to be a feature guy. Next week Swift's going to be a feature guy. Next week Sermon. That's just how the Eagles do things. Like, you just can't rely on this. And I think it's a big waste to take any of these guys before round 10. But, after round 10, sure, go for it. But they're just not falling there, so there's no value at the moment.
Yeah, they're kind of a total cluster right in the middle. No one knows what to make. You have your guy you back, and maybe the play at this point is just to say, hey, I'm going to take Trey Sermon with my last non-defense, non-kicker pick.
Yeah, that's what Kenny did when we drafted a week ago or 2 weeks ago. He mentioned Sermon. I have to give Kenny a lot of credit there. This is before we saw Sermon kind of looked really good in the preseason. And ever since Kenny mentioned that to me, like, I've kind of like just like paid attention to Sermon, and like all I'm hearing from the Philadelphia media is like, oh, Trey Sermon looks great. He's finally living up to his expectations. So yeah, and like Penny's been playing as the third running back in each preseason game. So he might be on the outs. So it's just kind of crazy because, like you said, he was looking so promising early and like not anymore.
Yeah, it's always a bummer, but I imagine Penny will land somewhere else, but you don't want to draft him when you can get him on the waiver wire, especially if someone else drafts him, then they panic and release him, and then you can scoop him off waivers when the Colts inevitably sign him after trading Taylor.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so one question, then we're going to head out. Jimmy's asking, who are your running back targets in the 8 to 12 round area? The easy answer is like no one, because this range really sucks for running backs and receivers. So like this is where you should take your quarterback and tight end. But let's run through all the running backs in rounds 8 through 12. So Gainwell, no, too early. I like P. Ryan because I think he's going to take most of the touches. Pacheco is the RB1 in Kansas City. I don't know why he's going so late. Penny, no. Gibson, and not so much PPR. Jalen Warren, I'm a big fan of. I think Warren, we've talked about him for sure. Brian Robinson, I like too. He's going to be involved in the passing game apparently, so that really strengthens that his outlook. AJ Dillon is not exciting. But if Aaron Jones goes down, suddenly that's going to look a lot better. And also if Jordan Love looks a lot better than people think, then he's going to look pretty good. You took Tank Bigsby. I think he and also Tajay Spears, they make sense in this range. Harris, no. McKinnon, no. Jamal Williams, no. Charbonnet's another guy. He's going to be backing up Kenneth Walker right now. But he could take over as the starter if Walker goes down, which, I think he will if Walker goes down. And he has receiving upside for sure. So he's kind of interesting. A-Chain's injured. Elijah Mitchell, not really, no. Algier, not a huge Algier guy. I don't hate him, but I don't think I'm going to draft him. Singletary, no. Foreman, no. And Mostert. Yeah, it's like the Miami running backs remind me of the Eagles running backs, but 12th round is okay, I think. So that's my running back assessment here. Do you have any thoughts on these running backs?
I almost just flipped my desk over somehow. I don't know how I did that, but Yeah, I agree with you. I think Samaje Perine's the one guy that I would say if you can get him in that 8th, ninth round, you're going to be sitting pretty there. I think that'll be a good investment. Bare minimum first half of the season. Maybe Jamal Williams comes on in the second half and is really good, but I think Perine will be kind of a solidifying force on a lot of fantasy teams. From there, sleepers I like Jalen Warren, Tank Bigsby. Like you said, Zach Charbonnet. I like Tyler Algier more than you just because the Falcons are such a run heavy offense. And Bijan Robinson's going to handle a lot of the workload, but Tyler Algier, if Bijan goes down, all of a sudden he might get the volume. But PPR, Cordero Patterson will steal some of his touches, so not the greatest pick there. You can take a kind of a dart throw at Raheem Mostert to Jeff Wilson if you really like one of them. Maybe Devon Achane, I'm not as high on him because I think that he's going to be a little banged up with that shoulder, but I agree with you. They're like the Eagles. 1 week it's going to be one guy, one it's going to be the other. But the one thing you can do is if the Dolphins guys are on the board rounds 10 through 12, pick one of them. Hope they have a good big week 1 like Raheem Mostert, and then be like, hey, I'm going to try to trade this guy as part of something. I'm always looking to do that. It never works, but it sounds good in my head, so I try to do it.
Yeah, it's a good thought. I never get any trades going. I don't think I made a trade in years, just because like all the offers I get are so bad, and I just delete the email as soon as it comes in because I don't even like counter because it's like so bad. Yeah, I'm not big into trading in fantasy. I wish like people were more reasonable in their trade offers than I would, but just like I feel like people just are like they don't even think to make it even. They just want the best outcome for themselves. So I don't blame them, but it just makes trading impossible for me. So I just never bother with it.
Yeah, no, I get that. Often my negotiations are, hey, this is a reasonable offer. And then the counter offer from them is like, I want your RB1 for my wide receiver 4. And I'm like, nope, I'm done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't understand some of these people. So, yeah, that is it for our mock draft. Thanks so much for everyone for listening and just watching and commenting, and really appreciate it. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store, although it mean a lot to us. Thanks for everyone for the congrats on the newborn. Really appreciate that too. It's been a little crazy in this house with 2 kids under 2. So my son's running around like a madman, and my daughter now is crying because she wants food all the time. So you can imagine things are insane here, but it's a lot of fun too. So yeah, thanks so much. Jacob, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. We'll be sharing plenty of my work over at from sportingnews.com. Check us out for all your NFL needs and other sports as well. Specifically on my Twitter right now, I believe I have Jonathan Taylor potential landing spots for him was the last thing I tweeted out, besides retweeting all of the links to this show. So if you're looking for all the teams that could land Jonathan Taylor, I have a breakdown there. And I have my fantasy offensive line rankings already. They are very long and very, very much time consuming to read, but I will tweet those out and you guys can have at it and try to see if you can identify any sleepers from those. I always find that a fun exercise to do. It's not always accurate because offensive line injuries can kill fantasy potential, but I think it's a good tool to have. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, just if you have any football related questions, send them my way. If I see them, I'll answer them.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to that feature too. Always interested in seeing the offensive line rankings. But yeah, Jacob, thanks for coming on again. We'll have to join for one final mock draft next week, and then it'll be time to talk about the week 1 picks in 2 weeks from now, which is pretty exciting. So looking forward to that. But yeah, thanks again to everyone, and I'll be back tomorrow with Kenny. We're gonna do a standard fantasy mock draft, so I'm looking forward to that, and I will talk to you guys then.